Hi, Steffi here from The Makers, and I'm going to show you today how to turn a more cartoony, super cute but slightly more stylized head of a koala into a more realistic head. Now this particular project is based on our Makers box, July 2023, but it might be helpful to know this anyway for any future projects that you might want to attempt if you are making something that you want to look a little bit more realistic. So the first thing I would say is definitely have a photo of the real animal that you want to make in front of you. It really helps to see what they actually look like. So you can do this with the koala, but if you're making if you're attempting any other animal, then do that too. And one of the things is don't feel bad if you produce something that looks a little bit more cartoony. We all have mostly cartoony images in our mind, unless you've got a photographic memory, and that is because of what we've been surrounded with. You've probably never seen a real koala, but you've seen lots of them in picture books and all over maybe children's books and so on, where they might be a little bit more stylized. And so don't feel bad if this is what naturally comes out of you. But you can certainly sort of train yourself to see where this varies from the more cartoony, where a realistic head varies more from the cartoonish heads. So this is for all of you who need that little bit of extra help, and here we go. So these are the two heads that I've got here, and you make this one from the instructions in our koala box for the Makers box July 2023, and this is what I'm planning to do. Now this is an evolvement from this one, with the only exception that the ears are separately made in a different way. So I will show it to you from beginning to end, but if you have the instructions, then do keep following them, because you are using most of those steps with a few tweaks. So I'm not going to tell you how much wool you need to use because you'll have the instructions, but in any case you are going to take your grey wool and wind it into a ball shape, and then you're going to start felting this together so that you're getting your shape nicely formed. So my second koala head that I'm making now might be a tiny little bit smaller. That will just help me to get to the end of it. So please do work with your measurements and also with the templates that come in the koala instructions. But in any case, you're making a shape that resembles a little bit like a pebble, using the lighter grey from your stash. And with the koala, if you aren't aware of this, you are using the reverse felting needle to really give him that furry, soft appearance. So we are actually using the lighter grey on the inside, and then we're colouring it in with a darker grey. So in your case, you will be felting this down quite solidly. Your lighter grey might vary slightly from my grey. We have got different batches of grey that we had to put into the boxes, so don't be alarmed by that. And then you're going to use the darker grey, and you're going to cover in the whole shape in the darker grey. So you can do this in small increments. It always works better to work with small quantities, and you can do it as you go along, but in any case you will have to stab this down quite well, as will you do with the head. Now if you're going by the measurements in the box, you don't really have a choice other than to stab it down really well, because the template just won't fit if you only stab it a little bit. So get it all felted down into a nicely solidly felted little pebble shape almost, and do work in small increments because you'll be using the leftover grey wool for the ears. So you don't expect to wrap everything around the head. There will be some potentially leftover which you can put towards the ears. Right, that's coming along nicely. Now if you have a multi-tool, then you can put this to good use. I really like using the Clover 5 needle felting tool because it just stabs it down. Once you've made the start, it does stab it down quite well. all over, so it's not a great tool to firm it up because the needles don't go in far enough, but it's a good tool to smooth out the surface. If you need to firm it up, then use your 3-needle pen, Clover 3-needle pen, or even the blue one that's unbranded, and that will also work really well, or just work with your single medium felting needle, which works also really well. So excuse that the head in my case is not as solidly felted as yours will be, but I'm just literally wanting to show you how it's done. So you will be working this a little bit more compared to what I have been doing. Now you're going to make, still even though you're making a more realistic koala, you will still need the white wool to make the chubby cheeks. So you're going to use this, use the quantities again as they are indicated in the instructions, and you are rolling this into a sausage shape like this, and then you felt it down, and you're rounding off the edges and some more on both sides. So you're making a sausage shape. The template is actually here, so you're aiming for this shape here, and that's what I'm aiming for too. And once you've got that shape, you're going to fasten it to the koala, but in a certain way, because we want to make sure that we can fit that little chin that's here underneath, that can sort of slide as far into the cheeks as possible. So when you fasten this on, you're actually only stabbing it on around the top, and you're leaving the base unattached for the time being. When you stab into your shape, as I'm doing right now, mind your fingers. It's usually when you stab towards your fingers that you nip them. So be careful when you're doing this. Some people have given people have given me hints and tips of what they do to avoid that. You could use another needle and hold the shape down with a needle and then felt it. So you keep your fingers out of the way. Of course, you can wear finger protectors. That's also a solution. So there are many ways of how you can avoid stabbing your fingers. However, if you stab a needle in there, as you just seen, there's always the danger you stab into the needle, and that could potentially break your needle. Right, once you've done this, you're going to attach the cheeks onto the koala, but you're only stabbing into the top edge and around the side. So we're leaving the bottom part unattached. It's all very well explained in the instructions. This is still how you make the slightly more stylized head, but I'm coming to the other part in a minute. So, and then you're making an indentation so that you almost have sort of a little dent in there, which is where the nose is going to sit, like this. And that's all done with a medium felting needle. And then you make the nose from the allocated white wool, and that's just a ball shape that you wind up in your fingers and then felt down. Again, be careful that you don't stab yourself, especially when you're making small shapes like this. So just be really diligent that you watch what you're doing and keep your fingers out of the way, or as I said before, use something else to hold onto the ball, like another needle, for example, or use finger protectors, or just take your chances. So just felting that into a ball shape. Again, you will be felting this a lot more thoroughly. And then you're going to attach it by almost sort of sliding it. Can you see how it sort of fits into that cavity that where you haven't felted it down, and you're actually now just felting into that area. So you're attaching the ball, but you're also going around it. But you're now attaching that little chin under. Sorry, I've got to just felt down the grey a little bit. It's definitely not firm enough the way that I felted it, but you will be doing that, of course, much more thoroughly. Make sure you work in symmetry, so make sure that everything's bang on in the middle and that you've got a nice symmetry going. That's one of the things that always makes things look odd if they are not symmetrical. So sometimes it works better if you're looking at it the other way around, and then suddenly you see, oh, this is slightly out of shape, so it helps to move the things around so we don't always look at them the right way around as they will end up being. So felt that down. For the whole project you will be using a medium felting needle. For those who are subscribers to our Koala Makers box, you will get the needles that you require in your kit this month. So you will get the medium felting needle, but also the reverse felting needle, which you will use at the very end. Right, once you've done this, you're now going to make a similar shape, in fact the same shape from the black wool that you've just done for the cheeks. So it's the same template that you will be using in your instructions, and you're making the nose and the cheek out of the same one. There we go. And this is where it begins to look slightly different from the stylized version. Because what you're going to do now is you are going to fit the nose. With the stylized version, it is quite high up and you've got quite a lot of the cheek visible and then the chin. With the more realistic looking one, the nose actually goes all the way over and bends and curves across the cheeks. But before you do this, you're going to color in the cheeks in the dark gray. So this is definitely something that's different. So needle felt that groove in as you are meant to do in the instructions, and then color in those cheeks in the gray wool, so that it might sort of still look slightly differently colored, but later on when you use your reverse needle, if you stab into the cheeks, you can make them nice and furry again by pulling the white wool out, and then you've got ever such a slightly contrasting grey part on there. So now you're felting these cheeks down a lot more and you're covering them with the grey wool all at the same time. And then repeat that on the other side. Just felt it down. So your koala's cheeks are no longer white, they are now covered in grey, and that is a very distinct difference. You keeping that little chin white, so that hasn't changed, but you are felting the cheeks in, you're colouring them in grey. And you might have to just shorten the fibres a little bit. This dark grey is very, very long fibred, so make them a little bit shorter if need be. You're not trying to build bulk, you're literally just colouring them in that new colour, which is also the same colour as the whole head is. And maintain that groove, because that's where the nose is going to sit on. And work in symmetry, none of this has changed, so make sure that you have a very symmetrical shape here still. So now when you attach the nose, you want to be attaching it so that it reaches over the cheeks and going onto the forehead. Now the other detail that's slightly different from the stylized one is that you need to give your koala a slight bulge here on top of the nose, and you can do this just with a little bit of grey wool that you wind into a smaller sausage shape. It's not as big as the nose, so don't make it the same size, but it's just they have sort of almost like a very strong shape just above their noses, so we just want to felt that down on top of it here. And then attach the nose. So attaching the nose, you want to go in a really curved shape. They have very sort of almost like, I don't know, kidney shaped noses that are curving. and attach the nose by stabbing into the edge first, because you don't want to flatten the nose, you want to keep it quite distinct. So keep stabbing into the edge all the way around the nose, and that will help, because you're putting it over the cheeks. You are getting that really curved shape, and there is quite a distinct line between the top of the nose and where the head carries on in that slightly bulged look. Now you can cover the top up if it looks too attached. You can add a little bit of grey wool over the top and just make it all into one shape. There's absolutely no reason why you can't do that, or you can leave it as it is. That's entirely up to you. Now the eyes are done in exactly the same way again as the instructions, so the only difference on the head is really that you are colouring in the cheeks and you're shrinking them, and then you are making another little feature on the head here where you're adding sort of an extra bulge on the top here, and then you're colouring that. Not colouring, you're covering that with the grey wool if you want to, and then you are attaching the nose so that the nose actually goes all the way down. So on here it doesn't, but on here it does. So it is a little bit different, and also the nose in effect therefore it appears a little bit smaller because it reaches down a little bit more. So then for making the eyes, you just take a couple of wisps of the dark grey. You follow the instructions basically. Sort of make a square, have a round wisp, fold that in half, and then you're folding in the sides to almost sort of make a square shape, and just flatten that a little bit with your fingers. So there's one. You could just stab it down a couple of times as well. There's one, and then make another. As I say, you might have to shorten the fibre a little bit because it is quite a long fibre. So you're making it into, I say a square, but it's actually more rectangle. And these are the two sort of eye patches, if you like, and they go onto the head like this, right by the side of the nose, and you just attach them around the edge. So they look a little bit raised, and that's what they're meant to. So don't flatten them too much, but they're going right by the side of the head on both sides. Again, work symmetrically. Make sure you compare the shapes from left to right. And then you're going to take a little bit of your pink wool. So I'm making sure that they are just look a little bit separate from the rest of the head, because they're the closed eyelids that we're felting right now. Then you take a little bit of your pink wool, which I have here, and twist this into a strand that fits across the eye, so from here to there, so you can measure it and then take bits off, and just felt that down on one side first, and you're going all the way across the eye, the center of the eye, and felt it down gently. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're putting a black line across it, but you still want to see the pink on either side, so don't completely cover up the pink. And you can do both eyes first and then put the black, or do one eye and then the other eye, as I'm doing here now, but just showing you what happens is that you're putting a thinner black line across it, and that gives that really sort of lovely effect of a closed eyelid with the sort of the line still showing. They have quite a lot of pink along their eyes, so that's quite a good way of doing it. I haven't twisted that very much, but it's okay. So make sure the pink is definitely broader or wider than the black that you add on top, because you do want that to be still visible on either side of the black when you felt it down. Oh, that's gone in the wrong place. There. So the major feature of a koala is not just sort of the very distinct looking nose, but it's actually the ginormous big ears that they've got. And I'm going to show you how I've made the ears for the more realistic koala, and they are fundamentally done in a different way to how you might want to make them for the more stylized one. You can combine the two. There's nothing stopping you from giving your more stylized koala these kind of ears. So there's no pink in these ears. I haven't used any pink at all, but what I have done is I have used grey wool allocated for the ears, and I'm tearing off two same patches there, like that, and I'll show you with one ear first. So you still follow the template that's in the on the instructions. So you felt the inside of the ear as you would do before. Now with this one, you don't fold the wool in. You just keep it completely fluffy around the edges, like this. Just felt the inner part of that down and keep turning it over. And just felt it down. If you have a multi-tool, it will speed it up. So you want that to be a nice solid felted area on the inside of the ear, with all the wispy bits still sticking out. And then you're going to use your light grey wool. Now you can add a little bit of white into it if you want to mix it even more. And all you're going to do is make a really bushy wad. So you want it to be nice and thick. And you're going to felt this now and have it nice and short as well. You're going to felt this now onto the edge of the ear. This is the base that's going to be attached. And you're going to go all the way around. So make sure it's nice and thick what you're adding to the ear. Going all the way around the ear, felting it down into the center. And occasionally you have to lift it off. It looks so much bigger, the ear, than you actually want it to be, but we're going to trim the edges off in a minute. So don't be alarmed by that. And of course it's sort of overlapping the grey wool as well. And in a minute I'm going to do the same thing from the other side as well. So it's going down, but I'm only felting it to the very edge. So all of this is wispy. It stays wispy. I'm not felting that down at all. And a little more, and one more, and then this is done. And now I'm going to lift it off. I'm going to give it a little stab from the other side, and you can repeat this from the other side. If you have got the wool spare, repeat it from the other side. Which is, I think I did that on this occasion too. So just repeat it, even if it's a little bit less, just repeat it from the other side. If you've got the wool, repeat it. It's not essential, but you can do that. And once you've got it felted down nicely, then you're going to trim the ear. Now the trimmings that are coming off, you can actually use on the other ear. They're not wasted. I'm going to keep that as the inside of the ear. Give it a good little stab, a bit more. And then all you need to do is, this is quite a fluffy ear now. All you need to do you just need to trim the edges, so that will thicken the ear even more and make it look like a sort of a fur trim, if you like. So you're trimming the edges so that you've still got the bits to attach here, but you've got these lovely fluffy ears. And of course you can make them smaller or bigger, however you like. You can felt them down a little bit more, because they obviously will shrink a bit when you attach them too. But once you've got them trimmed, you should be able to just attach them to the side of the head. And I know this looks ginormous at the moment, but it will also shrink down as you are attaching it. Now the ears need to be sort of ever so slightly sitting up towards the top, not quite as much to the side as with the stylized one. And you are felting this on from the back and the top. So get the wool stabbed in so that you get the ear on, and then felt it down a little bit so they curve slightly inward, like that. And if you find the ear is too big, you can trim more wool off. There you go. They do have ginormous ears, so if you feel that you've got too much ear there, then just cut off a little bit more, but you should still maintain that nice sort of a fluffy, slightly teddy bear looking edge that you've added here. And that is how you make the ears on the koala. And I'm going to replace this one with this one now, because I think you've got the gist of how to make the ears. So fluffy ears, and you can use the fluff that you cut off, which is this one here, to make the second ear. So don't get rid of it. You can definitely still use that, because you can mix it and turn it into another bit of some of the fluffy bits that go on the outside of the ear. And I hope that that is pretty much everything that you need to know to make a more realistic looking head. And yes, please do ask questions if you need any more help. But in the meantime, good luck to you, and I see you soon.